Putting someone over. Like the phrase 5 moves of doom, it's a term that gets misunderstood by many. So, what does it really mean? Where does the term come from? And how do you put someone over in the first place? Well, those questions are the topic of this episode. Because today, Dave knows putting people over. Let's start with the term over. Over is short for being over with the crowd. Now, most of the time, this just means being cheered. The louder, the better. But there are other less common ways to be over. For instance, you can be over as a heel as well, meaning that you want the fans to boo you for your in-ring actions, and they do so accordingly. And aside from cheers and boos, you can also get something over by having the fans gasp or cringe or freak out as a result of something you did. If you're getting a strong emotional response from the fans, whether it's positive or negative, as long as it's your goal, then you're getting over. But now, as to the origin of this slang term, like many bits of wrestling babble, it's pretty unclear, but there are a couple of ideas. First, the term going over with the crowd could have something to do with how are things going over out there, as in how are things doing. And if things are doing well, then you say, oh, things are going over great. But there are others that say that the term has to do with the phrase getting one over on someone, as in scamming them. Because as I've mentioned before, once upon a time in certain areas, wrestling was used as a con. So getting one over on the entire audience could easily have been shortened into getting over. And I'm sure there are other possible origins for the term too, but let's bring the focus back to the present. Now, the biggest misconception today when it comes to using the phrase is that it simply means losing to someone, because it doesn't. Yes, giving someone the W is definitely the most frequently used way to put someone over, but that's a huge oversimplification and it isn't the only way to do so. And also, more importantly, just because you lose to someone, it doesn't mean that you necessarily put them over in the first place. Allow me to clarify. Because in order to go over with the crowd, you have to make a transition by winning. You have to go to a higher plateau in the process. If you're already over with the fans and you win a match and you're just as over as you were before, then you really haven't gone anywhere. You stayed exactly in the same place. And this is why just losing to someone doesn't always count. Let's just look at Hulk Hogan at the height of Hulkamania. If he beats some jobber, would you say that that jobber put Hulk Hogan over? No, because he's already the Hulkster. That jobber really didn't do Hogan any favors by losing to him. In order for it to count, a win over you has to mean something. Your value must be higher in some regard than your opponent's. Therefore, when you lose to that person, some of your momentum then transfers over to them. But also, another reason why just losing alone doesn't always count as putting someone over is, well, let's just look at Roman Reigns. People lose to him all the time, but it doesn't make his stock rise any. Because it's not just winning, it's how you win that matters. Like, for example, if you're a wrestler that has never tapped out and then you not only lose, but you submit on top of that, then you really put your opponent over and probably also the submission hold itself as well. And that brings up another point, because you can put over more than just wrestlers. You can also put over moves, match types, weapons, and even more. When a finisher is protected and no one ever kicks out of it, then the executor and the victims both work in order to put the move over as a finisher. If a move gets a big pop from the crowd just because it's some goofy fun, then the person doing the move got that move over. If a wrestler runs in fear of a move and then screams in agony from it when he's put into it, then he's doing a great job of putting that move over. And let's just look at the Hell in a Cell match at the King of the Ring in 1998. The Undertaker and Mick Foley were able to get not only that match, but the entire Cell concept itself over with the fans. Furthermore, let's just look at Mick Foley himself. He lost that match, but that was the night that The Undertaker made him famous, which is why just losing to someone isn't putting them over, because Foley's loss was completely irrelevant. In that match, nobody earned more respect and was raised to a higher platform than Mick Foley, and rightfully so. Oh, and on a side note, putting someone or something over isn't finite either. You can put someone over even if it's just for a moment. In a tag team match, for example, if you're actively avoiding a wrestler by tagging out whenever he's in the ring, you're putting that wrestler over in the match, even if its effects only last temporarily. But furthermore, you can also undo putting a wrestler over if you do something to completely undermine things soon thereafter. When two wrestlers exchange wins back and forth, no one's stock goes down too badly, but no one leaves the feud looking any better either, and thus making the whole feud meaningless. And when it comes to wrestling in all aspects, the goal should be getting as much over as humanly possible, and getting it as over as you possibly can. Sure, some will end up on the losing end, making themselves look bad just so someone else can look good, but that's exactly the point. Because when wrestling does things right, it's an even exchange that keeps the industry moving forward, and it leads to better wrestling. Well, there you go, a closer look at what it means to put someone over. But what do you think about how putting people over goes down in the modern era? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe right here to Dave Knows Wrestling, as well as to my comic book channel, Dave Knows Comics. And check me out on Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, Dave Knows.